Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tactical Crouch, episode 137, brought to you by viewers like you on Patreon. Today, with your usual hosts, I can give you advice on how to build a Dolby Surround Sound 5 PC streaming setup, John Kickedtripod Horstman, together with none other than Honey, I just saw this Reddit thread. You start with the foreplay and I will be back in 2 hours. Sasha Yiska Heinisch. And of course, the man who writes so many articles you thought it was 3 different people, but you vividly remember him for predicting China to win Overwatch League Season 12. Joseph Volamel Franco. Today, with a unique guest, 3-time visitor on this show, world-class esports analyst, content genius, #1 panda lover in the world, and famously remembered for his disappointment over finding out that the Cheesecake Factory is in fact not a factory. Dennis Barroi Matz. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your episode 137 talent lineup.
Yeah! Way better.
Well done. Dude, I am dead.
Oh my god.
Absolutely nailed it.
Jesus Christ.
This is how you do intros.
I didn't see
That is how you do it.
I didn't see that coming whatsoever. Oh my god.
Wow.
Whew.
What do you say? What do you say?
That's sweet peak, guys. It's not gonna get any better though.
You can just stop the
Yeah,
show.
thanks for stopping by, everybody. We'll see ya. Can't top that. Yeah. Well, hey. I don't, there's no intro here. Because we already did
That's
it.
so good.
So you already know who we all are. Thanks for being here. If you like the show, patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Big thank you to our patron producers, Refined Bean, Ferdino Pin, Battlecrab, Coochie Kopi, Loshin, Rex, Zane, Audio Compass, Kasha67, Shara, Nathan, Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Fabled Steven, Roger B. on Chris R34444, Horbjorn. I listened to the podcast whilst on the toilet and in the shower thinking of Yiska and Peace Camper. Thanks so much for supporting the show. Patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Obviously, we have a guest on the show who is better at introing than I could ever hope to be. And I'm just looking back at the 136 previous episodes and wondering what I've been doing with my life. And yeah, but Barroi, been a while, man. Like it's been a while since we had you on the show. Loving the polo here. That's we were talking about this before the show. Which one is it again?
Wox Tigers. Not
The
Huya
Rocks.
Tigers, not normal Tigers, not any other Tigers. It's the Wox Tigers, #1 Tigers.
Where are they now? Alright.
They are all
Scattered
dead.
like the Dragon Balls.
Scattered like the
Who is their mid
dragon.
laner? Prey, Gorilla,
Kuo?
Peanut, Kuro. Okay. It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
I'm just forgetting.
Dude, I liked my Yiska bit the most, by the way. I just want to say
That was really good. Yeah, that one sent me over the edge. I just saw the Reddit thread.
Well, it's not wrong.
Nope.
Definitely not wrong.
Not wrong at all.
Other than suggesting that I'm active in that way. But
That's one way to put it. That's certainly one way to put things.
Oh man. So where are you from? Yeah, oh, I didn't see the Yiscat shirt back there.
I am
Oh.
the best visitor guest of this show ever.
It's true.
We need to make him a belt, like a championship belt that we have to pass on every year to the best guest, because I think Barroi's easily like defending champion from 2019 with the Panda Dance intro.
Oh yeah, actually, dude, I
yeah.
just remember every time I'm here, like there's something going on.
He always brings gifts. He's like Santa Claus.
It's true. It's
you know that I once went to the bakery with that shirt on because it was laundry day and I really didn't feel like it. And like two dudes walk up to me and just look at my chest and they just look at me and just go like, "What the is going on?" I'm just improvising, just go stack putty, and they're like, "Oh yeah, congratulations."
Yeah. I actually did wear my shirt to CrossFit one time, and they thought it was like a famous CrossFitter, and I just left and went back to my lift. Didn't even give him a response. It's just like
it does get further away from that. Wow.
Yeah. Anyways, so Overwatch. A little bit of a lull here for another week, hey? A little bit of.
Except this weekend, you can watch the Toronto Defiant throwback tournament. Brought to you by TD Canada, the Canadian #1 bank in Canada.
So
we're gonna play goats because I'm a fucking genius.
So how
is that your?
Unironically, I'm more hyped for this than All Stars. I'm not kidding.
Dude, I bet you that this tournament is gonna get more viewers than the fucking Contenders final, just because it's fucking goats. Like,
Probably.
how good is it?
Sorry, tier 2. There's a couple of them in here.
You should have really communicated to your players how serious they should take it. It's just like I'm looking at numlocked source. So it's like, oh yeah, okay, it's going to be a chill event, and then you look at like Roki in comparison. It's just like, what is going on?
I don't know. We told them it's just for fun because the fucking season is over. But then there's like Logix who just gets the stacked lineup, and then like Kruise wanted to have like a real chill lineup. But then he saw Logix try hard.
Like,
So he was like, okay, now I gotta try hard. And meanwhile, Woki didn't say anything, and he got like what, Hanbin and like
Rhea, like
K or something. Or, yeah,
Glister,
Rhea,
I think as well, right?
Yeah, Glister. It's, like,
It's actually insane. It's actually nuts, yeah.
It's gonna be stacked. And then numlocked here with his 5 real life friends.
So what about the rules for the GOATS tournament? Does everyone have to play these 6 characters exactly, or can you play out?
We actually said they can play 8. So it's the 6 original GOATS characters, and Anna and Zen are also available.
Okay. Right.
So they can play a bit around, but they asked if they can play like Sombra Goats, and we were like, nah. Fuck off.
Yeah. No, that would be. I mean, Sombra Goats, I suppose, in some sense, could have been interesting because it was like sort of stage 3 meta, but like, yeah, like that's as far as they should probably drag it. What do you mean, like Anna Zen? Is Moira then also a playable character?
Yeah.
Okay,
Moira
right.
is original.
Right.
Or I would say the original Goats character.
Right. Yeah. That and Gator is also in that tournament, so.
Oh yeah.
We're bringing it back, yeah.
Dude, it's actually gonna be fucking fun. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna watch the Overwatch League final, but I'm gonna watch this.
Are you really not going to?
No, I will watch it. Obligatory.
So it's like a group stage into a single elimination.
Yeah, I don't know if they announced it yet, but we'll have like 2 groups, and they do like a round robin, and then after the round robin, we'll have semifinals, 3rd place match, and final.
Wait, how do you do that in one day? That's an insane amount of games, isn't it?
It is a lot of games. I'm not sure if they'd like simulcast the group stage or something, but it's gonna be a lot of games. Again, it's like 5 teams per group. The top 2 make it out. So I guess it's like per group, it's like what, 10 games? Yeah, that's a lot actually.
It's quite a bit of Overwatch.
I guess there will be simulcasts because we have like so many broadcasts actually. There's like 5 different streams or something.
Oh really?
Wow.
Interesting.
Which is cool. And the players can stream too because it's in theory it's fun, but they can win money. So I guess that's why some of them are tryharding.
True. It's also just fun to try hard again, right?
Yeah. Fun to try out goats, especially.
Do you know if any of them have been scrimming?
Actually, Nevix asked me like 2 days ago if he can have like the code that we will play on, because we try to like run back the patch as much as we can with like workshop and whatever, so that Brick isn't garbage and and Wine Shield has like more health or whatever. So we try to do it as much as we can with the workshop stuff. But Nevix actually asked if he can have it so they can scrim, and I think Nevix and Logix's team are scrimming against each other.
Really?
So they're actually they are
Might
full
actually have some
into
good games.
it. Yes.
That's insane. Wow.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Fucking goats. Everyone loves goats.
Are you
Like, the thing is,
are you
I had
doing
this
anything
idea-
for this tournament, Barroi? Like,
I actually will be on the analyst desk for the semifinal and the third place and final. I don't know what we do, but it will probably be fun.
Wait, what do you know about goats? Never mind.
GG. You got me. But yeah, actually, I thought it would be fun. I don't know. I just had this random idea because TD is our new sponsor, and they came in like only a few weeks ago, and they wanted to do something, and
Mhm.
so they wanted to do a tournament because like a bunch of other teams did tournaments, and we were like, meh, it's gonna be after the season. The players have left. Like we have to do something that's not like super annoying for them. So that's when I thought we can just play goats, because like after goats went out, like there were so many goats lobbies where people would just play goats, and like a lot of pro players would just play goats, especially Koreans loved goats. After it was patched out, everyone would just still play goats because it's so much fun. So that's what we're doing. Play
It's just
fucking
like a
goats.
hidden, like insane goats team that's just only been playing like one comp for the last 2 years.
Yes.
It's crazy.
It's this
Should be a good
Sunday.
time, though.
Tune in. 11 a.m. Eastern.
Certainly click the ads.
Click the. I have never said this.
There's a bold-faced lie. Well, season is over
Sad.
for the Toronto Defiant. We want to kind of jump into.
let's do. Sorry, I got distracted because Fall Guys posted an official lore post about the skeletons of the Fall Guys guys.
Yeah.
There's law in Fall Guys.
Apparently,
Okay.
And anyways,
2020, baby.
So they show and it's actually a bright spot in 2020. That's the sad thing. So yeah, let us do that thing and jump in a little bit to the conversation with Barroi. So let's take a look at the Toronto Defiant at a glance here. The finished with an 8-14 records, and it's including bonus wins, I believe. 15th in Overwatch League overall, 8th in NA out of 13 teams. And I think one of the biggest highlights, for me at least, was your really great finish in this Summer Showdown, finishing tied for 3rd, 4th. So with all that in mind, kind of laying that base, how are you feeling after the last season for the Toronto Defiant overall? Did you meet kind of your expectations?
Oh, definitely not. Like the thing is that we always they put expectations on us to get into playoffs from the start of the season, which back then meant like.
Well done. All you had to do was like instruct a global pandemic in order to achieve that. Master
Well,
plan.
back then it would have been like what, top 12, top 8,
12, yeah.
or something. Yeah. Which I guess we haven't met. I guess actually I remember going on Reddit at the start of the season, and like all the people there would. I checked like what the predictions were, and all the people on Reddit were putting us. The highest we got was 12, and then the lowest we got was 20. Because yeah, but I think we actually hit the average Reddit expectation, which is probably not a good thing.
Right.
Most certainly not.
I ended up ranking you twice, by the way. I don't know if you know. I think
Okay.
I ranked you
It happened.
17th and 12th. So if you
So
average
we
those
made it.
out, yeah, right on
Yeah.
expectations. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm hoping
Yeah.
hoping that whoever had made the spreadsheet put that in there for my accurate spreadsheet of being really good at pre-season power rankings that doesn't tilt Yiska at all.
Things could have definitely been better. I mean, there were just a lot of things that were crappy this season, but I guess we're not the only team for which it's the case. It's just a lot of things. Obviously, the pandemic, Jay retiring, FIFA retiring, Kellex retiring. Like, retirements are not easy to handle.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not easy to handle at all. It's suddenly there's like a lot of new responsibilities that have to be put on someone else's shoulder. If it's a player or a coach, it's the same thing.
So there was no sort of like intended structural changes that came with those retirements. They were generally pretty surprising.
Well, yeah, we didn't expect them to retire. Well, obviously, we had like a plan once we knew that it's gonna happen.
Sure.
But it's still like, it's not the thing with which we went into the season. So no one really expected FIFA to retire, for example. And then, however we react to it, it's not going to be ideal because it's middle of the season. Head coach is retiring. We have no one who can like really fit into the head coach role. So it's just going to be non-ideal for the rest of the season. And I guess we actually managed like fairly okay. We did like well in the summer showdown. I think we played like really well in the playoffs. Honestly, it's really unfortunate that we lost against Gladiators, but I think that was one of our best matches in the season. I think if we had won against Gladiators, I literally think we would have at least won one more match. If that's against like Florida or Valiant, like all of those were 100% beatable. Especially once we win against Gladiators, it's just a bit unfortunate.
And it was close, right? Like,
yeah,
it felt really like there were like 2 deaths away, especially on Li Jiang, where it's like, if that guy doesn't die here, then you probably win that map. And it's rough in that sense, most definitely. Like, it's also felt like for the strategical options that you had, you still executed quite well in terms of like what could be done, and in the end, like, I feel to a large degree, and maybe I don't think it really matters whatever is going to be played into the top 4. I think we already have enough justification to say that the comms that you and Houston were running were actually quite feasible on a wide range of maps.
Yes.
And
the thing is, I don't know what the public reaction was to us playing it. I saw the public reaction to Houston playing it, which was obviously like overblown. But the thing is that you have to understand that if you play a comp that is like half decent, it's more than half decent, this Pharah comp, in my opinion, it's more than just half decent. But if you play a comp that's like half decent and no one else plays it, except for maybe one team, then you're gonna have an advantage in the match because no one is gonna practice against it. Like like once you go into the match, they have no clue what they're gonna do. Like, I'm not saying play it on Li Jiang like Houston does, because I think that's like a little bit of a stretch. But like on a lot of those maps, you can play it, and people will have no clue what to do. And if it's half decent, then that means you win. Like, because adaptation in the moment is extremely difficult, especially under pressure for making playoffs. Like, that's the thing.
I know this was a kind of a big talking point, even looking at last season with GOATs and like people trying to like allow a lot of like what Monty had critiqued Houston for was, trying to still adopt the GOAT style, even though like it obviously was not working.
Oh yeah, I critiqued them too for this, actually. I remember.
So you kind of agree with that sentiment, and even more so now in 2020, looking at like not finding your own style. I think that's kind of overplayed at this point, but like creating a style that isn't going to be easily replicated by other teams, like finding what works.
There are 2 things that you can do. Either you're by default like a really good team and you're just very good at the game, and then you can probably just play meta and like refine the details of the meta. Like, for example, if you're Philly, you want to figure out exactly what your Reaper does in the fucking Reaper Sombra composition. Like, you want to like micromanage him as much as possible and give him like advice for how to hold this fucking gun or something. Like, you know, you just go down to the very detail because you just want to be the best in the meta. But if you're a team who's like on the bottom half of the rankings, then I think it makes way more sense to just play something that suits your players, and that is not played by other teams as much. Like it's not gonna always happen that there is something like this. But for example, in this patch currently, there's this Pharah thing, which is probably good for Houston because they have like a good Pharah play, and it's probably good for us because we have a bunch of players who are good on those heroes as well. So if we are one of those bottom half teams, if you will, then doing that is actually strategically the better option, because you're never going to be as good as the best teams on a meta unless your players are like specifically good at those heroes. Like for example, in the Summer Showdown, we are obviously like really good on the Genji in the Genji meta because we have like players that are really good on those specific heroes. So just playing the meta is good because we are good at it. If we are on a meta where that's not necessarily the case, where we have to play like Sombra Reaper, which isn't a strong suit of our players this season, then we should play something different, which makes sense and which teams don't play against.
I wrote that article, by the way, like I think 6 weeks before that Houston point ever popped. It's called "The Meta is a Gamble. Why don't you play the odds?" Which is very much the same, like basically the elevator explanation of that article. And it's more so now the case than it ever was, I think, because like now I feel like the top teams haven't reached the level of sophistication in this specific comms where just by the synergy and integrity of the comp that they play, it's very hard to even throw curveballs into them, right? Like it was like when people talked about like Shanghai having solved sort of goats with season 3, like people were telling me like Shock and Titans were very close to figuring that out without ever having to make a hero switch, right?
Yeah.
If they had prepared for that, then they would have likely, like, had that meta continued, goats would have prevailed most likely over the Shanghai comp.
I think it just would have adapted, right? Like you would have found like a way to deal with like the DPS compositions. Like it would have existed, but I think the DPS composition would have existed as well. Like it seems like we're always, at least for the future of like modern Overwatch, if we're gonna call it that, like we have at least 2 horses in each race. Like even for every like solved goats meta that we think we find, that there's always going to be that like second school of thought that's like, well, you could do this if you had the right players, if you had the right kind of style. Is that something that you kind of think going forward?
Especially, well, for me, especially in this hero pool thing, it's that teams don't have the time to quickly figure out what is going on. Because if you give them the time, then they'll figure it out. Like if you give them the time, then you can play Reaper somewhere everywhere. Maybe make one hero swap to deal with the Pharah or something, or make one hero swap to deal with Genji or whatever. Like, but if you don't have the time, then you're gonna adapt on the spot, which is something that's gonna be hard to do. Like for example, the reason why I think like if we had beaten Gladiators, I think we would have won against every team. We would have had the chance to win against every team except for Philly, because we scrimmed Philly a lot. And Philly figured out how to deal with it, actually, which was unfortunate. In the first few scrims against Philly, we did well, and then at some point we just got crushed. But the thing is that you have to have the time to figure out what to do. And if you never see something before, then you don't have the time to figure it out.
Right.
If it's not obvious. And if that other comp is half decent. So that's why I think we could have won one more match, even if it was against like Florida or Paris or Shock. Shock less so, but at least the other two, I'm fairly confident that we would have had a shot at winning. And that's something that I think will continue in the future as well, where teams should just experiment a bit and not just default to whatever other teams do, especially if we continue with like hero pools, which I hate, by the way. But if we do that, then you can just experiment with different kind of things and see what's happening.
So
As actually, like something that happened this year. Sorry, something that happened this year that I felt like was initiated by Florida the most was, I don't know if that was noticeable from the outside as much, but in the past, teams would always play, like there would always be like those three things. There was like poke, wash, and dive, right? Those are the three archetypes in Overwatch.
Yeah.
Something that happened this season, like a lot, was that, and I felt like it was Florida, that the team came up with like a hybrid comp that was like pokey
Both.
wash or like divey poke. And then this comp would just completely destroy everything else because it can do two things, and you just have to adapt the play style of what you do depending on what other teams are playing, and depending on what the meta is like pushing out. You can just play this hybrid comp, because most of the time what happened this season was that the hero pools would push out wash completely, or poke wasn't playable at all for the 2 weeks that the specific hero pool was in place. And then you, if there was no poke, then you just play like washy dive, and maybe that's a bad example, but and suddenly this new hybrid comp is like really good. And I felt like that's something new that happened. If there was nothing else that happened new, I felt like this was a season of hybrid comps. I don't know if that was really noticeable, but that's something that really felt like it happened a lot. Like, just think about all the Ash Tracer comps where it's like half dive, half poke.
You saw Fate doing a lot of like really vertical jumps and kind of peppering in some like deep dives along with his tracer based on certain things, or at least I'm kind of assuming that based on what you're saying. And it kind of like makes sense now that you're saying it. I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but yeah, that definitely checks out. Looking at his kind of play style in particular, it seemed like there's like kind of 2 schools of thought where he would either dive or just kind of like do this almost Reinhardt-esque play a lot, where playing very, very purposely around the corners and just not really playing like a Winston almost would, or like not how you are like stereotypically think of a Winston to play. But yeah, it's interesting. Definitely didn't pick up on that.
So you did mention, and then kind of continue to go on about that you hated hero pools, and I want to unpack that a little bit with you. So and you specifically were talking about it from the perspective of compositional diversity, and I mean, I think that it would not be a generalization to say that one of the largest aspects of implementing hero pools was to address compositional diversity. Do you not feel that hero pools did that? And why else do you hate hero pools then? Especially when you come from like want to see more siege teams try more and do more of what they're good at.
No, I felt like it definitely created a lot of diversity in terms of what was going to be played over the season. The thing is, it's just that it feels kind of random, and because like randomly a team is good or randomly a team is bad because of hero pools. And I remember there was this one hero pool where it was just like, okay, Shock is shit. Shock is just shit now. Yeah, that's what it is. Thank you. And then everyone would just like say that Shock has to get new players because obviously they are not good anymore. No, just wait 2 weeks and all of a sudden they can play Wash again. Like, whatever. It's just that I think Hero Pool is something. It's a tweet I made at the start of the season that Hero Pool will create diversity and it will create randomness, but it will take away like how good teams will be like at a certain meta, because you can never reach the ceiling if you only have 2 weeks. So the thing is that there are 2 things that you could think that brings viewership, because it's all from a viewership perspective that the league did this in the first place. And the 2 things are either you create randomness, or you create excitement through randomness, because all of a sudden Boston can beat San Francisco, And the other thing that you could do is create excitement through prowess. So you have like Shock versus Philly like every month because those are the two best teams and it's going to be hype as fuck. To see those teams play on like the best level that Overwatch can be played. And from my perspective, this season was an experiment to do excitement through randomness. And it failed. Like, just look at the viewership numbers.
Oh, that's
failed.
our topic, guys. Okay. Numbers guy, tell him.
Well, I haven't looked at the numbers quite
right. Because,
but...
no, like what I was saying is we had the argument that while viewership is very intransparent in what makes up the intentions of viewers, it at least felt like when Hero Pulse came in, there was really nothing happening to the graphs that we didn't see in the pattern of the seasons beforehand.
I'm not doing this.
There was something that Blizzard did that did impact the graph.
Yes, and that's excitement through prowess.
Yes.
Which
so
is
that's why I wanted to kind of fight you there, because I felt like they did both. Like, to your definitions, it felt like they tried both, which is like a good thing and obviously a bad thing.
But the thing is, they never intended to do it.
Sure.
They never intended to create excitement through prowess. They never intended to have like monthly.
They wanted Hero Pools to just rock the entire season.
Yes,
right.
It's
I mean, there's
something that
provable
happened because
data.
of the coronavirus.
Right. Yeah. No, that tournaments helped is very likely the case, even though they coincided with drops also coming back.
Sure.
But like that has a provable track record in like seeing, like there are certain things that coincide also with hero pools, like the lowering of production value, right? Like maybe that turns people off. Like having less the possibility of less analysis segment, of like engaging content in that way, not having the hype live crowd or whatever.
Yeah,
like
just not being
it's
Atlanta
sort of
general.
But I feel like there was like a grace period, and you would have thought that at least there would be some fluctuation generally. Like I think we cannot say with which power this moved anything. I think it just was completely inconsequential, like gut feeling. I think based on the numbers that we observe, it neither helped nor really hurt anything, which either that it goes by attracting a certain audience and therefore another part of the audience leaving, or the general audience just being indifferent to whatever is happening on the screen.
I mean, I think you could argue that it subjectively kind of like ruined any kind of explanation. Like, it was already bad that like the analysis desk and like the pre-show was already kind of like hard to do. Just like 20 teams, you only have so many people, they only have so much time to be able to sink into like building these narratives. And now that they're manufactured week by week and you have to come up with an explanation for that, that's like very real and tangible to the viewer. Like, yeah, I think you could like with some accuracy say that, yeah, it hurt things. It didn't help anything. Like,
okay. So because one comment in chat tilts me off the planet. There was, let me quickly find it. There was a research paper by, sorry, it's Deloitte. I don't know how you pronounce that. It's like a Deloitte, yeah. And they analyzed esports data during COVID, right?
Okay.
And the graphs that I looked at, it's like 70% up. Like in most countries,
like across the board.
Yeah.
Is it like measured by like titles in particular, or is it
it's now specifically for Europe, to be fair? I think.
Okay.
I haven't looked at the data in detail, but like viewership increase.
It looks up.
It just doesn't just look up. It looks significantly up, right?
Okay.
Except one esports title.
It's us.
Right? So
Which is it?
Which, okay,
well,
I'm already going to say it. I'm already going to say it. There's one thing that Overwatch League also did this season that none of those other esports did.
Right.
Change platforms.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sure. Yes, but like that's a drop off that's definitely happening. By the way, I misphrased what I was saying. Like, they only aggregate esports viewership. They're actually not saying anything about Overwatch, but we can tell that it happened, right? Like, and like the platform argument is a fine one because yes, we absolutely lost viewership in terms of like transitioning to Twitch, but it's about the growth patterns at these specific points in time, which is other events or leagues that also, by the way, stream on YouTube had at the time of the pandemic an increase in viewership
on that particular platform,
on YouTube, on Twitch in general.
Right. Yeah.
We didn't. We had our growth when tournaments came in, token,
which
tokens.
we're blessed for. We're very thankful for. Tournaments have been great.
Just look at Call of Duty. Just look at Call of Duty and what happened there. I don't know if you follow it much, but obviously my organization has a Call of Duty team, so I know some shit. And the thing is, they convinced Activision that it would make way more sense to have tournaments because they wanted to do the same thing in Call of Duty, where it's just like a season and you play each week and then you have playoffs.
Yep.
Boring as fuck. So what the Call of Duty teams did, and with all the player influence, like all the fucking millions of followers they have on Twitter, apparently that convinced them 1 week before they started the season that they want to have tournaments, actually.
Yeah.
And look at what it did for the scene. Like, all of a sudden, Call of Duty gets more viewers than Overwatch League. Like,
This man just emerged from my soul. It's telling all these truths, man. Like,
so
this is what I've been living in.
Like, there is another aspect of this, though, and we need to talk about it. And it's just the simple fact that the content creation market as well for Call of Duty is much stronger. People are already on YouTube consuming COD.
Sure.
It's already a platform that people use and consume regularly, and esports is a big part of that. Overwatch doesn't have that, and that's another issue as well.
The season didn't start strong for Call of Duty. It actually got better over time.
I agree. They did a better job at growing it, but I think that having a strong foundation on the platform that they're putting their Premier League on helps that, doesn't hurt that.
Sure, fair enough.
Where is the strong foundation for Overwatch again? Which platform?
Your mom's Switch.
Like, there is none. That's my point.
That's not your point, but that's a point that we agree on.
Yeah. Like,
I actually think if there's a strong foundation for Overwatch compared to other esports, it's actually live events.
Right.
Honestly. I think live events in Overwatch work way better than any other esports
community-based stuff is where Blizzard has the bread and butter.
Too, yeah.
Have you guys were at the homestands, right?
Yes.
At one of them? Was it one or two? Okay.
We were at like 3 or 4.
Right.
We were in Washington twice, in Houston, and our Florida one got cancelled, so I guess it went 3.
Can you tell us about the experience? Like, how were the crowds? Was it full? Was it hype?
And we were in New York as well. New York was the first week, I think. So that one was like extremely hype. It was hype as fuck.
New York and Dallas, I think, were that week. And
Houston was hype as well. Washington, because Washington the first week was actually really good. The second week we were there, it got kind of meh because it was like there was a 2-week break and then it was Washington again. So that's, you kind of have to realize that there's some satisfaction reached and then people won't go there anymore. But actually, I think if we had continued the year with traveling to different events throughout the year and not having like Washington every month and not having Houston every month, then it would have been really good. Like, I know most a lot of homestands were sold out. Like, I know our homestands were sold out, and our homestands were in like fucking August, so it didn't matter at all. But the thing is that I think live events for Overwatch make a lot of sense because for some reason it just works.
I mean, it's very inclusive, the community. So there's like, I would say that the base of just the people represented is probably the largest of any game, especially on the esports level, depending on how you classify
it's also,
Fortnite.
I think it's also just that there's like a lot of kids that don't necessarily follow the Overwatch League, but they know esports, and there's like a lot of young children that like have this like back in the head. They have this ambition to be like an esports professional one day. And if you have like an opportunity to go to an esports event, even if you don't follow Overwatch League extremely closely because you're just
Sure.
10 years old, you probably go there. I remember like it was funny because after the homestand in New York, we went to me and a couple of players with our content team. We went to the Empire State Building, and because our content team wanted to take pictures and videos and whatever, and there were like a group of children up there, and they were like, "Hey, like, are you an esports team?" Like, we had just Toronto Defiant like jackets on or something. There was nothing to say that it's like esports, but they kind of got it.
Right.
Maybe there was like an Overwatch League logo or whatever, but like they didn't necessarily know what Toronto Defiant is, but they knew what esports is. And I think that's the thing that like draws people to those kind of events if they are locally, because most other esports don't have this.
Well, and I think the United States, and I don't know if this is like this at all in like Germany, Yiska, but like in the United States, there's actually a lot of like tier 2 professional sports that like people will still like local. I would say like lacrosse teams and soccer teams are like a great example of, you know, you're not really a soccer fan. I'm not really a lacrosse person, but you know, I'll go check out the Colorado Rapids and stuff too, because it's a part of the event that happens. And I think that I think that actually makes a ton of sense for people who, I like Overwatch, but I'm not necessarily like an esports fan,
Right.
or like a not necessarily,
or the other way around.
Can I then ask, like, what do you think that kind of mechanism helps with? So it's like, are you getting new fans in through this? Are you just like creating revenue through this?
I think it doesn't help at all. No, I just wanted to hit on that. This is probably the best thing that Overwatch has. I think it's shit. Like for financially, it's probably garbage. Like I'm pretty sure that most teams lose money on homestands. As far as I know, teams lose like
oh
a
my
lot
god!
of money.
Wait! Let's not cost you your job. I think that's not necessarily always the case, but I definitely have heard things.
Yeah, it's probably not always the case, but it just costs a lot of money to like rent event centers and set it all up and stuff. And I'm not sure. Probably teams, if they are sold out, they probably make some money. So revenue, but it's not significant. I think the biggest thing that it does for you is it grows fandom, which is
and that's a lot of these homestands. There's definitely a part of it that's just considered a marketing expense, right? You know, you're not. It's not that everybody is like. I don't think anybody is ever like hoping. Let's try to lose money on this expense, right? Like I don't think anybody is saying this. You're trying to make it one way or another. I don't have visibility to a lot of the homestands, but my general idea is that the expectations, the delta was large in what people were expecting from homestand actual revenue. In the sense that a lot of teams were okay and prepared to take a loss if needed at the beginning. Not that they were happy with it, or not that they expected to, or they budgeted not to, just that you kind of understand how things go. All of a sudden you're in a first time homestand. Are they going to buy merch or not? How much food are they going to spend? Is the event too short so that people don't want to buy food, or are the food prices too expensive? Like, is the entertainment good? Are people drunk enough? Like, there's a lot of aspects that, you know, make those events there. And not every Overwatch League team, as far as I know, it also has a experienced events coordinator at this scale.
Right.
To bring it, because I mean the closest I don't think that they're attracting a ton of like tier 1 sports talent to do that. I don't know if they're bringing, there's a lot of like expertise in the endemic sports organizations probably to help with that, and I don't know how they borrow and share that talent at all, or if they do at all, but I don't know of any teams that fully like designed. If we saw Boston would be the would be the homestand that I would expect to like try to create the most realistic money in to money out scenario, just based on how they built everything else so far.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, just to round out, like, what the mechanics are that I think also help is, I actually think it increases the broadcast experience. Like someone, let's just find a tangible example. I think a cast of someone like Uber Shouts in a big arena casting the home team is a very different and much more hype experience than it is when he has to sit at home without anyone. Like, they are just entertainers that feed off a crowd, right? Like, that's basically like what you bring someone like, you know, in some way, like we domesticated a lion in that sense this season.
Definitely
right?
helps.
So I think that's definitely like one mechanism that, like, also we see it in traditional sports where it's like, yeah, we're playing. It just, the feeling is very different. I enjoyed personally. I know a lot of friends that I've talked to that just don't enjoy that without the atmosphere, where they like the church built around the game is part of the entertainment for them, right?
It's an experience for sure.
And I'm just like, wow, I can finally hear the players talk and the good teams talk more, and this is kind of dope. And what they are saying, like, I finally understand, right? But like, that's not the average fan experience. So if someone was to make the argument to say, okay, COVID really hurt the Overwatch League because in more ways than revenue creation, if there was even any, through homestands, I agree, because the tangible effect or the intangible effects that it has on the product would be big. And let's not forget also on the player mentals. I think it would have helped. And I'm coming around to the idea that it is almost equal to the. So what I mean is the travel would have been very stressful, more so for some teams than others. And it would have absolutely like heavily burned out people as well. But probably not more so than being locked inside the entire time without the ability to, because now I'm personally also feeling the effects of this. Like, it's just nice to talk to someone, right? Every once in a while.
Yeah, it is. No, you're completely right. It's two different ways of mentally booming. And I think both are non-ideal. But yeah, I also think that like live events are just those kind of things where you can go to and it's fun because there's like a lot of people having fun, and even if you don't necessarily understand what's going on like on the screen as much as you would do if you're sitting at home, it's just more
you feed
enjoyable.
off the energy. Yeah. I mean, another kind of measurable thing that I think esports is kind of plagued by is the fact that fans, like very endemic fans, don't want to spend money. The Overwatch League fans do. Why? Yes. Because it's built from the ground up to kind of attach itself to what I think are pretty like fundamental grouping mechanisms to get real Yiska, you know. It's tribalism, right? It's manufactured tribalism. Right. Here's a bunch of clothes that say I'm part of this tribe. Fans want to buy that. I mean, this isn't just vapid stuff. This isn't Team Liquid. Like, I don't have any ties to Team Liquid, but if it was the New York Team Liquid, then you start to see that transition. And I think that's the big attraction of this whole thing. And I think you could see measurable. I don't know the numbers, but I'd be willing to put a large sum of money on that being a big attack vector.
That's one thing. I understood the intention with like making a big deal out of super fans in like the first seasons. I just thought it was ill-conceived of what mass fandom is, because I think the vast majority of fans actually don't want to stand out or feel like they're individuals in this crowd. I think if you go to an arena, you want to be part of the LA Valiant soup in this gigantic bowl that is the arena, right? And you want to become part of that energy. And to elevate certain people of fandom in that regard, I don't think that's necessarily a healthy thing. Now, if these people just had like for instance, we know that from, and I'm sure it's also a thing in American sports, like our super fans in that sense.
We
are more
we
like
don't have them as bad as yours.
The collective hype creators in football arenas, where it's like one guy just destroying his vocal cords, just getting everyone to cheer the same thing, right?
Yeah. High school, there's always the
sorta.
Yeah.
And like we have these ultra groups, of course, that also like dictate a lot. And they sometimes need to be reeled in. It is very rarely a person. I couldn't name you a single super fan in European sports, other than the guy that was like, hugging the Brazilian World Cup when they got 7-1. That's the one guy that I knew, right? Everyone else is just part of the same soup. And then there's a small guy down there screaming very loudly, and the others cheer that.
Yeah.
And now in the Overwatch League, I can easily point you towards like the people that were elevated.
You could probably name a few by like name.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I agree. Like, I think like the agreeable portion for me there is like the idea that over the course of like history, we've definitely gone away from like the super fandom. Like that, I feel like has definitely gone down as like a cultural trend, especially with like the younger people. I think this kind of goes back to the idea that Blizzard really didn't want to be endemically esports. I think there has been like a big war waged on like the idea of esports, and like Blizzard kind of paving a new way and being like, this isn't going to work. We have to do our own thing for the 18th different time and like fail 30 different ways that people have already failed and never learned from anything anybody did over here.
Might be Activision, dude.
Which very well could be. Right?
I mean, you guys saw the announcement
Companies
today,
in general,
right? Like, all of your favorite game directors who look like they might just be retiring, like they were just like worn out from it. They're like, no. This is,
we're gonna go make our own thing.
We're gonna go make our own thing now that we can't. Yeah, now that we can't get in trouble for it anymore.
And that very well might be the case, right? It's just a trend that I've noticed since this whole thing kind of kicked off. They're very against like endemic esports, or they're very like they look at traditional sports in a very glowing light, let's say. But to kind of return to the idea of like traveling and how that might affect like experimentation and stuff like that, I wanted kind of your opinion on the idea that we would have, or how would you, or what is your opinion on the idea that travel would have increased experimentation and hero pools wasn't necessarily needed?
Travel?
Yeah, travel, having different meta pockets. As you kind of travel to Asia, you experience new compositions. We know Overwatch is a very social game.
Oh yeah, we didn't experience that.
We didn't get that at all. We just had it manufactured for us.
Yeah, actually, I think that would have been amazing, honestly.
Do you think that would have happened?
Yes, definitely. Just look at what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like Asia has their own kind of meta.
Mm-hmm.
And they will clash. Like they're clashing right now in scrims. Like those two metas. And I think that would have happened continuously. Where if like, because we wouldn't have gone, for example, wouldn't have gone to China for like a long time. We would have gone to China in like May or June or something.
Mm-hmm.
And until then, we would have never interacted with China unless they come here for like a month.
Right.
And because those occasions would have been like extremely rare over the course of the season, it would have happened like twice or 3 times or something, that the individual pockets would have interacted with each other. They would have been like, there would have never been like a converging meta that would have come out of this. Because even if like let's say Boston goes to China and we don't go to China, and then Boston comes back with the China ideas, doesn't mean that suddenly we all play the China comps, because Boston is coming back with the China comps. And it would have just been, again, just an A at some point, like after a week or so. Boston will play an A, or an A will play a little bit of the China stuff, and then the same happens in China, and then they will evolve on their own again, and then suddenly we go to China, and it would have been fun in that sense, actually.
I think so. I think with not the constant patching, but even if they upped and were a little bit more aggressive in their patching of the game, like We understand how much or how quickly one patch can change things. Just look at the grand finals patch or like the playoff patch, right? Like,
Yes.
it's nobody could have expected. I don't think Blizzard expected it to be played this way, right? So we're still kind of figuring out what patches mean for this game. They can be crazy catalysts for changes you can't expect. So that constantly resetting things, 2-3 months out, every stage, every tournament, however you want to kind of tie it together. I don't think hero pools were necessarily needed, and it's kind of interesting to hear your thoughts.
Well, I don't think hero pools were needed.
I mean, sure.
I really think that it just creates a very different environment of like what happened normally in Overwatch League. Because normally what happened last year was that everyone was trying to like narrow down details of the comp, like where should your Zarya position in goats, and like you always want to have this like 90% angle of your tanks or something,
Right.
which were actual stuff that people talked about because it was something that helped you win. And it's super detailed. And in hero pools, because of hero pools, it all became this like teaching a player how to be a good player in general. Like what should they call and who should they play with, like in a general sense. Because in 2 weeks, whatever detail you tell them right now doesn't matter anymore.
Yep.
So it's like the bad teams are chasing. It's like the bad teams are constantly chasing after making it more detailed because they want to catch up to the good teams, while the good teams are trying to teach the players something more intrinsically valuable that's valuable for the next metas as well.
Yeah.
Can I outright ask you, do you think you would have built maybe this roster a little differently had you known this was going to be hero pools while building it?
Well, I wasn't involved in the roster building, but yes, I would. I think this roster wasn't built well for what
hero pools.
For hero pools. And
so you would have done better if it was just one meta, and you could have like.
I'm not sure about that because I'm not sure if the team was built well at all, but it would have definitely been a lot better for one meta. For hero pools, like right now, what we are thinking of how to build the team or extend the team or whatever we want to do for 2021, there's like very specific ideas that never have been talked about before because hero pools wasn't a thing. But there's like specific things that you want in your team now that only make sense with constant changes and don't necessarily make sense if you only have like 2 or 3 dominant metas over the course of the season, because if you have that, then it makes sense to not build a team like fully out and get like people on along the season that help out in your weaknesses. But now, because of the hero pools, you want to have something that is solid for almost whatever is happening. And I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to share my ideas of what you should do. But there's like some very specific things that you want in your roster that I never thought about before, for example. And I would have never thought that you want that. But right now I'm like, yes, you definitely want this. Just let's just say you definitely want 5 main tanks right now. It's not
okay. You heard that, all you Overwatch League coaches. 5 main tanks is the best way to prepare for hero pools.
Yes,
you're welcome.
Okay, so then let me ask in a provoking manner. How are you going to build a roster come off-season window opening when you don't know if Overwatch 2 is dropping during the season, when you don't know that hero pools might be continuing? What is your modus operandi now?
I mean, you just do what like right now. If I had full control of how to build the roster, then I would just build it so it makes sense for hero pools. And if at some point whatever happens and you like you would just play for like a lot of diversity, and you would just have.
Right.
The thing is that like the new contracts that they hand out make a lot of sense for teams. It's like very easy to have a 12-man lineup and have or 10 or 11 players, and have those that don't play in any given week just play on contenders. Even if you don't have a contenders team, you can just put them to contenders.
Right.
And more drastically, you could fire them.
Right.
And give them a 30-day buyout, which is kind of bullshit for players.
Right.
But in theory, teams can do that. And so you can still build for this like highly diverse theoretical meta that would be coming up in 2021. And if it's not happening, then you can still
at least have like an out.
Yes,
That's what you're saying.
You're still fine. But if you don't do it,
okay, Barroi, I'm going to elevate that a level. Do you not choose a different head coach as well, depending on what kind of meta you're going to get? For instance, like don't you just, or sorry, like competitive system, hero pool, like new heroes coming in, like big influx, like 4 heroes suddenly. Don't you want different personnel as well, not just players but also staff?
Yes, actually.
Right.
Actually, yes. Like for hero pools, for example, it makes a lot more sense to have more staff members and a different type of personality as a head coach than you would have in stagnant in 3 like dominant metas over the season, for example. I don't want to say too much, but like in theory, your head coach is a different person depending on what those 2 things are, and the setup, the structure of your coaching staff in general would be different as well, I think.
Mm-hmm. Are you guys thinking about Overwatch 2 at all in all of this?
No.
Not yet.
No. I'm not thinking about Overwatch 2. The only thing that's gonna happen is that there will be like 4 new heroes or something, right? And a new map, game type, I guess, but like what can we do? Like this we can't really do anything about it. Like we can't really plan or anything, I think.
I mean, you don't have to comment on this, but like when the BlizzCon announcement came out, my heart dropped a little, because in my mind it was like, yeah, we're not going to hear anything substantial until then, maybe. Yep. And that has big implications on how you build rosters.
It could.
Right.
That's
just a probability statement. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of want to be cynical and just say that like, whatever, we will just do what we do, and like 1 month before we start, and we already have our roster, Blizzard will throw something at us.
Yeah. But
that's what's gonna happen. Like this is what happened the last 3 years.
100%. Right. And it'll always happen. It'll happen before the playoffs, right before the season set to launch. Like it's it's a measurable thing.
We will never be satisfied. And 1 week before like something happens, we get bans. Or we get
right.
I don't know what's gonna happen. I just know something will happen, and I won't be prepared. No one will be prepared, because you can't be prepared.
But I think teams are a little bit more, or at least the league has given them tools to at least be a little bit more prepared once they do introduce these with the new contract system. Being able to kind of like quickly adapt the roster should, in theory, maybe I'm thinking too outside of the box here, but you should be able to you have more tools than you did previously. Would you agree with that? With how the contracts are set up for 2021?
Oh yeah, definitely. But
so at least teams have a little bit more of a chance. It's still not good. I mean,
for teams,
has
it's really
problems.
Nice.
Sure, for players, really
it's nice. For players, it's complete bullshit.
Best of luck.
Right. Yeah, like
can you imagine?
Theory, in theory, what you could do right now is like, let's say we are scouting contenders players, and actually, okay, let's talk about what was announced before they changed the timeline, because right now the timeline is that on October 16 you can sign free agents from Overwatch League, or Overwatch League players who didn't get the option extended get free agents or something. And 1 day after, contenders players become free agents. What was said before was that on September 14, contenders players would become free agents, and on October 3rd or something, Overwatch League players would become free agents. So what you could have done, and this is complete stupid, like for players, what you could have done is you could have scouted contenders players. You could have done trials and gotten like the 6 best contenders players, like one in each role, and give them all 30-day contracts.
Mhm.
Contracts that are supposed to only last for 30 days, because that's a new thing too. Not just a 30-day buyout, but you can give them a 30-day contract. So you sign 6 contenders players that are the best contenders players, and then once Overwatch League free agency comes up, you suddenly have Overwatch League talent like rain into your possible team for 2021. So you could have been like, I don't need this contenders player anymore, so goodbye. Good luck. I can keep this one, but I don't need this either. So like, I hope you find a new team. Probably not, because everyone has a roster already. So sucks for you. And then, like, do you realize how bad this is for players? Like, it's complete. It was complete garbage. And fortunately enough,
now,
they
right?
kind of changed it.
Yeah.
But still, it's not.
It's still
nice.
a little anti-player.
Very nice for teams. Just don't get me wrong. If I'm a team and I'm like, yes, I could get the 6 best contenders players, and then I can still get the best Overwatch League players because I can just fire them. Like, that's pretty nice if you're an organization.
Yeah. I mean, we hope that those good contenders players with leverage would just not agree to these contracts, right? But
sure.
They're it's gonna like that definitely would have happened, right? Like, I think
yes, it would have happened. I can.
It's a very reasonable thing if
yeah,
from a team's perspective, if you want to trial somebody, you think they're good, they don't potentially work out, you just let them go, and now they're a month out of trialing for another team, right? Like, it's gonna hinder their chances, and it's unfortunate. I think the idea, or to use Yiska's kind of analogy, the spirit of it is definitely useful for teams. I think it just has to be balanced a little bit more in the favor of players, so that teams at least have an out, so that you don't have any team that's just kind of like held hostage by people who just refuse to play and now just have to sit and ride out a contract.
Sure.
Whatever.
I mean,
right?
right now it's a bit nicer where you can have like buyouts, or you can basically just have buyouts. So you sign someone and you say you get like a 45-day buyout, which means if we fire you, we give you 45 days of your salary, worth of your salary. But like, which is good in a sense, because
some form of compensation, I suppose.
Like, a lot of teams that are not as well off in terms of like standings have trouble getting from 20th place to 10th, because it's kind of impossible once you locked in your roster to change that. But at the same time, if you're a player, you're like a contenders player, and you're like, okay, I'm giving up school, I give up high school, I don't finish my bachelor's degree, and I go into Overwatch League, what I always dreamt about, and then 2 months later you are fired.
There's no security.
Like, this
on top of hero pools and whatever else.
Insecurity is insane. Like, that's some insane stuff for players, and I don't know if I like it. I'd rather like having Boston be 20th forever. But
Preach.
Yeah, not sure.
Just a side tangent. Have you developed any in your, like, even just personally for you, or like as an organization, are there any like rivals teams that you kind of feel like you really want to beat consistently, just kind of irrationally more than some other teams?
No, if anything, I feel like we have made like friends. Like, I feel like I personally am kind of actually very close to the Washington staff.
Okay.
For some reason. But in that sense, we have made friends. But like, from a team perspective, something that is kind of weird is that since we boot camped in Korea last year, we've always been friends with the Paris team. Whenever we were scrimming with Paris, whenever we were playing against Paris, we had so much fun. Like actually insane amounts of fun. And I think that goes both ways for them as well as for us. Where I guess to some degree it's because some of the old Toronto members are now with Paris. Like I know all their staff members pretty well. We played football or soccer when we were in Korea together. Obviously, some of the Paris members came to our team. Fefe, Iblis, and Kruise later on as well. So I guess that helped, but we always had like a lot of fun together, which is cool. But we never had like a real rival, I think.
You don't just want to absolutely smash the Outlaws whenever you're playing against Dream. You just don't want to just like see just 3-0 them, call it a day.
Well, we want to do that with any team, but
not any out of the way.
Yes, but yeah, I think we made more friends than rivals, honestly.
Right, I was asked to ask which retirement of your team hit you the hardest.
Jay.
Okay, can you explain?
Definitely Jay. Because I felt like when Calix retired, he was the first one to say that he wants to retire. I think he wasn't the first one who did retire, but he was the first one who said he wants to. And when Calix retired, I was like, yep, just another day in Toronto Defiant. Like, I know this from last season. This is where we start. Right. So I was like, okay, I guess that's the thing. We'll have to look for a replacement now. And fortunately enough, we got really lucky that we could pick up Kruise. So I guess that was like, okay, we'll take it. When Fefe retired, I was like, okay, that's weird now. Well,
getting flashbacks.
That was probably the one that hit the team the hardest, I think, because I feel like while we still had our structure, like a lot of maybe disciplining wasn't there anymore. All of a sudden. Which maybe wasn't like a huge issue, but it's just it's just something. But the Jay retirement hit me personally the most because obviously I've been working with Jay for 2 years, and like he actually kind of always looked out for me, and even if I sometimes think that like, okay, maybe Jay could have done something faster, or he could have like done a better job here or whatever. Like when I was reminiscing about this, I was like, yeah, but at the end of the day, Jay was always like a good person to work with and a good friend. Like as an example, like when I was signed by Toronto, something that we were joking about, because back then I had actually a lot of offers, was that as like a deal I made with Jay, it was if we win the first match of the season in 2019, then Jay would take me to the Panda Zoo in San Diego. So we won our first match because we were actually really good in the first stage in 2019.
I remember that. We
were actually a top 4 team, like easily. Yep. So we won our first match, and like a week or 2 after, Jay rented a car. He rented a car and he drove me to San Diego, which is the 3-hour drive from Los Angeles. He drove me to San Diego just to go to the zoo and watch the pandas in the zoo. Which was a really nice day. We watched like koala bears as well and stuff. But and then he drove back 3 hours. So it was like a day trip to see the pandas. Right. So I don't think like a lot of people would do that kind of thing.
Right.
That's not a fun drive, by the way.
I don't think it's a fun drive. But I don't remember the drive, I just remember the panda. So it was cool. I've never seen pandas before, and it was just a joke at the start, but then we did it. So again, that's just something that not a lot of people do. And having Jay retire it actually hit me like really hard. I think this is by far the worst that could have happened. Like I remember on the day that he told us, I like had to go out for a walk. It was coronavirus already, right? So I went walking around the Ontario Lake or whatever it's called, and when I came back, Jay actually came out of the apartment complex, and I just had to hug him and stuff because I just it was hard.
Yeah.
But he's staying around in esports, so
It's true.
recently had an interview with him.
Now. If that's a good thing or not for him, then that may be decided. But I think the job that he has now, he's an agent for SCG, is actually something that suits him really well because he's always cared about players and staff a lot, maybe more than the company would have liked sometimes, because in the end he's the general manager. But because of that, I think this new job suits him actually really well. And I would recommend anyone who wants an agent to talk to Jay, because not only is Jay just like a really good person and a caring person, but also I think that SEG is by far the best agency in esports right now, from what I can see.
For anybody who doesn't or isn't, as well versed, that's the agency that both I think Morte and Bench Mob, famously former journalist and writer, friend of the show, all have worked and kind of coalesced into. Now Jay's joining that bunch. It's a good group of guys. So definitely,
and a good agency. Of course, like that we have to. I have to show like some impartiality, but like in the sense like players need a good agent this season more so than ever, because rights were taken away from like that you had for granted before, and now there's a lot of room that an agent can negotiate for you, and it's going to be very important. And whatever, like if you got a good agent, they are paying themselves basically by the deal they're getting for you.
Yeah, the thing is that like from a team perspective, it's like really nice if you don't have an agent. And I feel like from all the agencies that we are interacting with, because of free agency and stuff, SEG is the one that like actually is the most useful for players, because like there's like agencies like Evolved who have a big name for some reason, but they don't do shit. Like they don't do shit, and unless you show them your contract and you're like, should I take this offer? And then you wait for like 3 days and they don't come back at you, and you're like, they told me I have to sign now. Like, can you give me advice? And they don't tell you shit still, and you're like, okay, I signed it. Thank you, thank you for the help. Here's your money. While SEG is actually helping throughout the season, as far as I know, like because I actually don't have an agent, but if I would take one, it would be SEG. But the thing is that SEG actually helps players throughout the season a lot. Like Bench was interacting a bunch on Woki's behalf. I remember, for like just getting English lessons and whatever Woki needed, really. Like they just help you. It's nice.
That's great.
Also, shout out to Roki. I didn't know if I could love a man more. When he posted his Brood War little like I grew up here. I'm like, I liked you, kid. I knew I liked you.
Nice.
So just I think one more topic, I think kind of on the Overwatch thing, and then we can maybe rapid fire a couple questions and then wrap it up here. So since we're kind of on the topic of Jay and that, so Jay announces that he's leaving, at least publicly. I don't know when you guys knew, but that was early June. June ended up being one of your best months as far as your performance goes, as far as going deep into Summer Showdown. Not that it is because they left, but can you talk a little bit? Like, was there any sort of moment of rallying or figuring it out? Was it just a favorable meta? Like, who came and pulled the team together there to at least have a coherent June and early July?
trying to even remember looking back at what the meta was to try and.
I think it was probably just a very favorable meta for all of our players. We obviously, it felt like during that time we just put in a lot more work than we did for other parts of the season. Maybe because it was favorable, but that kind of snowballed each other to we put in more work and we are like good from the beginning, and we maintain that prowess throughout the whole meta, and actually become better at it. I'm not sure if there was any particular person. If I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember what it all was like in the timelines with like picking up Kruise and like getting numlocked. I don't know when it all happened. If we already had them at the point. But like whenever we got the new
Numlocked was
in...
signed 4 days before Jay, at least publicly, announced his retirement.
Well, yeah,
zYKK was already there. Kruise was about a month before.
Yeah, numlocked coming in was definitely a big deal. When Kruise came in, it was as well. But numlocked coming in was a big deal as well because numlocked puts in like a lot of work. And definitely by far the most work out of any player we had this season. And that's not to say that the others don't do shit. Numlocked is just doing insane amounts of work, like probably too much for his own health. But because of that, I guess it was just that everyone kind of got like a bump in motivation, and it obviously helped for the Genji meta, for the Summer Showdown. And I guess it just kind of snowballed, us being like good at the meta anyway, and putting in a lot of extra work that we didn't otherwise do. So it was a combination of things, I guess.
Sure.
And to kind of give numlocked some credit that I think he's overdue for. Jay putting in chat that numlocked was his last signing before he retired and moved into being a player agent. numlocked shares a lot of the same narrative that like Fearless kind of does, right? And you see Fearless getting a lot of like praise and love. numlocked, not so much. Not a player that people really look towards as kind of like an inspirational player, kind of really looking at the path to pro and what that was supposed to be. He's seen the highs, the lows, now kind of returning back to the top and playing on the biggest stage in Overwatch with the Defiant. I think it speaks a lot to his character, it speaks a lot to his play. Definitely
yes,
somebody who
you have to realize that numlocked is like 27 years old, so he's my age, and pretty sure he's 27. If not 28. He's a bit older than me.
27 according to Wikipedia.
Yes, so if I wanted to be a player, I would never. I just couldn't do it. Like it takes so much effort to like maintain your place at the top. And if someone of that age is still like maybe not at the very top, but he's still like hanging in there, that tells you a lot about this person. And as it is, again, he's like the most hardworking person I've ever encountered in this scene so far. So he deserves to be in this league, and I think, I just think it speaks volumes that that he's still in here, and that he probably was a big part of us doing well in the Summer Showdown and throughout the rest of the season, really.
So we'll keep talking here for a second, but I just want to let chat know, anybody listening, if you do have questions for Barroi, now's the time to post them in chat. So definitely do that.
Yeah, big love to Seb.
Yeah,
absolute stellar. I do want to kind of like look at some of the new additions. zYKK has definitely been one that kind of stood out, especially looking at the finals, or rather the playoffs. Could you talk a little bit about maybe the signing process for him? Like why particularly him and what he kind of did for the team?
We thought that we needed someone who's particularly good at Mei at the time.
Okay.
Because Brady didn't cover all the heroes that we would have liked to play as much or as efficiently as we wanted to.
Sure.
And at that time, specifically on Mei, we thought that Brady was a little bit weaker. And I don't remember what the meta was like, but this was the reason why we wanted to look for someone else as an addition to the roster. And I think, well, he's French, so some of our Frenchies and the coaching staff knew him. And
some French
they wanted
mafia
to,
strings.
Yes, they wanted to give him a chance, and so we did.
That's good.
And in the end, we signed him. We trialed him for like a week or two. Oh yeah, we gave him a 2-week contract at first, and then we signed him. So, yeah, I personally didn't have much to do with that signing because I actually didn't know Zik before. But I think it made sense to get him, and Zik is actually like. He's a player who like is very receptive when it comes to feedback. It's very nice to see. Obviously, he's like young and hungry, as you'd like to say. He's coming out of contenders, so he's like really hungry and tries to improve as much. And we gave him a structure that he's never encountered before. Because say what you will about the worst Overwatch League teams, they are probably still more structured than any contenders team you can be in, even if it's like Boston or Washington or Houston or Toronto, or like
Sure.
it doesn't
Probably,
matter. Yeah. They are still probably a better place to improve than any contenders team you can be in. So and it showed that he's really receptive of that. So we were actually really happy in signing him, and in the end, he did like a lot more than we ever could have asked for of him. Like he like stepped up and learned how to play Sombra, and even in the end he might have not been like really good on it, but like his improvement rate was actually insane. Like I don't know if you played him much on Ashe, but this guy is actually a nuts Ashe, and he's a flex DPS player. Like he's not a hitscan player, but we just had him play hitscan because we needed it. So it yeah, he actually he's like he's like this company slave. Like you tell him, you know, I know you don't know this Sombra character, but could you play her? And he's like, yeah, sure. Like, like you know, like most other players who are like around for a while, they're like, nah, mate, fuck off. But Zeke just does it, and even though he doesn't always look like really great on some of those characters, like the rate at which he is improving is actually really really spectacular. Yeah. Like especially on Ashe. I don't know why, but his Ashe is actually really good.
Yeah, like also just like the way he played the Pharaoh was very smart. Like the type of angles he chose, and like that's by the way, one thing I wanted to ask you because like there's this idea that like it's almost like diamond platinum level like deduction of strategy where it's like there's a Pharaoh, so you get an Ashe, a Widow, or a McCree, and that counters it, right? Do you think the Ashe comp was the counter to what's the Pharaoh comp?
No. The Ashe comp was the standard. Like that's what people normally were playing. And well, okay. In theory, it's probably the best counter you can get. But the thing is that this Pharaoh comp makes a lot of sense for like one specific reason, which is that like you also play Wotalk.
Right.
And Wotalk is actually really weak against rush comps. That's why nowadays we see a lot of Reaper Sombra. It's something that I kind of wanted to play at the start when this meta was implemented, just play Rush because it beats the Wotalk. And people were trying out Wotalk at times. But if you play Wotalk with Pharaoh, then you have to play Hitscan. And Hitscan is normally like nothing that you can rush well with. So if you play Ashe, then you're not gonna play Ashe Wash to beat the Warthog. So it kind of splits up your resources and what you want to do. And also on a lot of maps, the Pharah can do whatever she wants, even if there's a Widow, even if there's a Ashe. Like, if you have a good Pharah player, he can just play around the buildings, and your Ashe is looking in the sky, and she's like, the Pharah is there behind the tower. I can't shoot at her, but I can look there.
There she is.
Like, there she is.
Yeah.
I think it was definitely something that you guys.
Careful! The Pharah will shoot at you. Oh, you died. My team is dying.
And I can't do anything about it.
I don't think it's necessarily a great counter, but it's probably the best you can do. Like,
yeah, like the way you guys played around, it was like have Zeke either like in these like great positions. I'm thinking like, let's say, what's this? The third point where it's like, inside I'm mixing up. Sorry, it's very late. Like, no, it should be Dorado third, where like you come out of point and then like you just had Zeke on that slope the entire time, where the Ashe would have to look up at a really awkward angle, like in order to catch him, and then like he just retreated up that. I mean, it's if you want to call it slope. Just evading very well. And
yeah.
Right.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, that's not Ashe favored in that situation, right? Like, whatever you position the Ashe, either it's like super easy to pick her off with Hog in that case, or like it's just like it's so awkward to aim at an like at a 90% at 90-degree angle from the floor, like just up there, and like tracking just doesn't work the same way. It's really awkward. So
I personally still think that Wash is probably the best counter you can play against the Pharah comp. Like, even if probably the Reaper Sombra actually makes the most sense, because like the Pharah, the reason why you play Wash against Poke is because the Poke doesn't have the time to kill the Wash, because the Wash is fast. And if you're just fast at killing the Poke comp, which this Warthog Pharah comp is, a Poke comp, then even if the Pharah is alive, the Pharah Mercy is alive, and the other 4 heroes are dead, and maybe Pharah gets like 2 kills or something at the end, but like she can't win the fight on her own. So I think you might probably not need an Ashe really, or Widowmaker or whatever.
I hate to get like strat nerdy, but like looking at what you guys did on, I think your first fight attack against Glads on Temple, you would have like Nevix and I think it was Logix on Sombra like flanking, and having Zik, like the surface area of like your general composition was like super like spread apart, right? You would have your Diva and your Sombra kind of collide with the enemy Ashe. I think it was Glad's Ashe, if I'm remembering the match correctly. Like you either could position your Pharah in a way that like put the Ashe in danger, or you just dealt with her with like this big dive and then attacking through like mid. Like, are there certain maps where like Rush isn't favored, where it's just like, what do you do? Like, if you're the Reaper team on Temple, and you like for whatever reason like have the soul read, and they know that the Washington Justice, for instance, right, they're going to attack with that Hog comp, like that feels really awkward to be able to dive off the point and try to rush the team. So like, are there like weird scenarios where you can force them into picking something that's like incoherent?
There's some maps where it's like just really good, or where it's like really bad, and I think that one of those maps is actually Ilios, which was the first map that we played, and for some reason, who was it? Gladiators picked that map, and we were like, "Oh, nice!" Because like we were so bad at control maps. But they picked Ilios, and we were like, "Fuck, we could actually win!" And we actually won the first map, which was really nice. But this is one of those maps where I think Pharah is actually favored no matter what you do.
Interesting. Historical Pharah map as well. Hollywood. maybe not so much. I feel like that's one of those maps where you don't have to like leap too terribly off of like those key control points to rush the poke. But yeah, that definitely makes me more interested to see what happens when the two styles collide in Asia, because obviously we're seeing, you know, Pig's Feet, if we're sticking to that name. You know, do you have any kind of thoughts or opinions on that? Is that something you guys were trying? Is that kind of, has that crossed your mind at all?
We've tried a bunch of stuff at the start, but then we just like went hard on the Farrakhan because we were like, okay, might as well play something that no one else is playing, and that makes kind of sense. So I don't really have first-hand experience on anything else, but yeah, I'm interested to see what's happening. Yeah, I was kind of shocked that San Francisco actually won against Philly. Let's see what's happening in Korea, I guess. I didn't watch much of the Asian games, so I don't know what's gonna happen. Like before playoffs, at least I didn't watch that much.
Yeah.
But obviously, Shanghai was doing really well throughout the whole season.
And then it's
Soul sneaking in, being the new Justice.
The season's long. At the end, there's a playoff profit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think another. Go ahead.
Keep going.
I think like it would be remiss not to talk about Kruise and the impact he had on your team. I think we did kind of bring you on and definitely got to talk about him, but as like to wrap it up in a nice big bow with, you know, his introduction to the team. Now that the season is over, could you talk about a little about his impact? You know, what he did for the team. You know, how he worked with the team. Like, what was his role in the team? Just Kruise in general.
Kruise. Well, he came into the team more or less as a replacement for Kellex because we thought that zYKK wasn't quite ready yet.
Okay.
Fortunately, I think zYKK deserves like a lot more playtime and a lot more applause than he gets, because he was actually doing like he is putting in so much effort. It's like really sad to have him benched sometimes, because like I don't you can't really see it from the outside, but like the amount of time he literally just spent learning English this season is like insane. The prowess he went through from last year at English to right now is insane. Like he's so much better right now than he was ever before. But the problem was that the whole COVID thing happened, and we scrapped our academy team, and because of that, zYKK didn't have much playtime. So that all kind of snowballed in him not playing as much as he probably deserved, because he just wasn't ready, because he didn't play much scrims with anyone for a while, unfortunately. But yeah, Kruise came in and he immediately became like I would say the emotional leader of the team. He would always like try to get everyone like up there to do more, and sometimes he would like even initiate if we had like a bad day or something. He would be like, "Yeah, let's watch 2 hours of VODs right after our scrims today," and then people would kind of hop onto that, and we would try harder and harder. And I think he was very important in the sense that he just got everyone mentally ready to be better than they could be, or to perform better than they would normally. And he was incredibly important for the team in that sense, where, for example, I think we would have never done as well as we did, like in the end in our playoffs, than without Kruise, because he was just like trying to put in more effort and more effort and more effort, and he's different from numlocked in the sense that numlocked puts in like insane amounts of effort, but Kruise makes everyone do it, like maybe not to the same degree that a numlocked would do, but he just makes everyone try harder, kind of. It's hard to describe because it's really intangible, I feel like the
Yeah.
role of an emotional leader, but it's also something we didn't have before, and it's something that I think to some degree, kind of every team needs,
For sure.
honestly.
Definitely. And again,
So,
speaks
yeah,
to
it
a
was
lot
it
of
was nice to see. Kruise is also very receptive. He never played Brick before, which I didn't know. So his Brick was fucking awful at the start.
Mm.
But he actually kind of picked up on a lot of the things that we taught him fairly quickly, which is always nice to see.
Shoutouts to Kruise. Shoutouts to Defiant for killing it.
Who's the
Excited to see
laziest on
what-
your team? I'm just kidding.
Okay, well, there's
I'm joking.
Let's just say it's me. It's none of the players. No one is lazy.
There you go.
It's just
There
me.
you go.
It has
There
to
you
be
go.
me.
3 days later, Barroi has been released from the Toronto Defiant. Dang, that would be brutal. Man, this was fun. I wish we could just kind of keep chatting. There's so many great stories and anecdotes, and I think the Toronto
I have
Defiant
time.
are just a team that I know you do. Unfortunately, I don't. I don't. I think Yiska, it's like what?
Yeah,
coming up
I
on
got it.
midnight here.
Yeah, and I gotta go to the doctors early in the morning, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do gotta cut it for right now. But chat, thank you so much for hanging out. Hope you all had a ton of fun today. Big thank you to the Memento Mori _ick and Repo1 for the new subs during the show today. Appreciate you a ton, as well as all of our patron producers. Refined Bean, Ferdino Pin, Battle Crab, Kuchikopi, Lolshin, Rex Zane, Audio Compass, Kasha67, Shara, Nathan, Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Fabled Steven, Roger B. Owen, Chris R34444, Horbjorn, and I listened to the podcast whilst in the toilet and in the shower thinking of Yiska and Peace Camper. Thanks for supporting the show. Go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch or leave a sub right here. It's still September. So your first subs and set of subs are discounted to various rates depending on how long you decide to subs. So appreciate you a ton. But Barroi, for you, before we get out of here, we always like to give anybody who's coming on representing a team an opportunity to not only just kind of any shout outs, but also any messages to the fans out there. There's a lot of Toronto Defiant fans.
Oh, actually, like our fan base is like really nice. I think they haven't released the video yet. Maybe they did. But like there's a video coming up, which is our Rewind series where we just talk about the last few matches, and this one is obviously kind of summarizing up the whole season, and we are talking a bit about the fans, because you have to realize like our fan base is actually like super supportive, like compared to a lot of other teams. Like just look at what happened to Houston when Houston lost against Boston. I just looked at Twitter and everyone was just trash talking their coaches so hard, and they were like, why are you playing Power? Like our fan base compared to that is actually really supportive, and I think like a huge shout out to the fans. I think we have one of the biggest fan bases for some reason as well, which is nice.
For sure. I would say you would. Top
Yeah,
six.
as far as I mean, I never looked at those numbers, but as far as I heard from our company, we do have like a top 4 fan base or something.
I believe that.
Which is cool.
Mhm.
But yeah, they're really supportive. But most of all, just tune into the fucking GOATS tournament this Sunday, because
let's go.
it's gonna be
A
hype as
fucking
fuck.
goats
Fucking
tournament.
Let's
goat.
I don't
go.
want to tune into a fucking
We're
goats
gonna
tournament.
We are gonna play goats.
all day.
Yiska grew up.
Everyone
for
is
this.
playing goats.
One time, dude. One time, please go goats, bro. Just one time.
Just go goats. We will have 10 teams competing against each other, all by our players, led by our players. It will be fun as hell. It will be
Ah.
better than any contenders game.
What
Get
is
the
what is
viewers
that?
up there.
Do you have the exact times and dates?
It will start at 11 a.m. Eastern, and it will go until like 7 p.m. or something. I will also be there.
That's on Saturday.
27th.
On Sunday.
Yeah.
On Sunday.
Sunday.
27th.
Thank you. Sunday.
Yes. It's. I think that's also the day when the contenders final is happening at some point. But you don't have to watch that. Just watch goats. Because no one wants to watch contenders anyway. We know all that. So
Come
we'll just
on,
watch
man.
goats.
Come
No,
on.
you know that. No one watches it. just watch Goats. I'll be there as well on the analyst desk, plugging in the nice TD Bank sponsorships.
This is why this team only gets like the old farts in, like 27-year-olds, like never watching contenders.
Nobody watches tier 2 is just him speaking for the Toronto coaching staff.
I watched tier 2.
No one. He's walking it back now. He's just walking it back.
No one wants to watch.
Sweeping up his footsteps as he. Back. Barroi, thanks again. Follow Barroi at GG Barroi. Yiska, really quick shout outs for the week. Where can people find you?
Just doing behind the scenes stuff. Really nothing to offer up. Like just going to tell people to already start without me while I prove people on the Reddit wrong.
Okay. Joe, what about you?
Yeah,
man?
you should rewatch the intro of the show. It's actually really good. The best intro in 137 shows so far.
Yep. Maybe second still to the Yiska dance last time. Must be intro to that. So.
Right.
Joe, what about you, man?
Yeah. Not too much coming up. Talked about how the 2020 off season is going to be crazy. Based on a couple things. COVID being one of them.
Read that yet. Actually, I wanted to read it.
It's summary. Shit's gonna be crazy. That's the gist of it. Click the ads.
There's a lot of crazy shit happening. Actually.
Yeah.
Like apparently there's like a lot of free agencies that I didn't expect would become free agents and stuff.
There you
like
go.
That.
Thanks for waiting till
Chat
the end of the show.
Got a little juice, chat. There you go. Crazy shit. Outside of that, got a couple colorful features coming out, some narrative stuff, and yeah, be on the lookout.
Awesome. As for me, you can find me everywhere at Kickedtripod. I've been streaming some TFT and my TFT grind on the stream here, prepping for Shadowlands and posting controversial tech tweets on Twitter. I think is kind of my new thing. So that's been a ton of fun. Join my Discord, discord.me/Kickedtripod. Otherwise, join our Discord, discord.me/YiskaOut. Is where we're hanging out, having a good time. I am definitely looking, if any of you Tactical Crouch listeners are playing World of Warcraft, looking for like leveling buddies and just, general gaming nerdery stuff, like by all means, let's chat because I'm amped for Shadowlands. Other than that, big thanks to everybody. Follow us everywhere at Tactical Crouch. We love you. We'll see you next time, and bye.
Bye.
Yay!